Night soil smells different from day soil. That sounds like nothing until you have walked a graveyard at 3 in the morning and realize the ground is breathing something up through the grass that it did not have in it 6 hours ago. Not decay exactly. Something older than that. More mineral. The way a stone smells when you split it open and get the inside of it for the first time in 100 years. I noticed that smell before I noticed anything else was wrong. The back section of this property, the part where the rows stop being straight and the markers stop being legible, it smells different from the rest of the grounds on certain nights. I tried to track it for a while. Weather, moisture levels, whatever had been placed at the graves that week. I kept a log for about a month before I stopped. The pattern was not weather. It was not season. It was specific to certain ground. It came from specific plots. That was the first thing. The second thing was the quality of quiet in that section, not the way sound carries differently near a wall or a line of trees. I mean a quiet you feel in your chest before your ears register it. The kind that happens when whatever is making ambient noise decides all at once to stop. No insects, no wind, no settling. Just a silence that has weight to it and edges. I worked the night shift at a county cemetery in New Mexico. Have for going on 2 years. The job is mostly what you would expect. Walking the roads, checking for damage, filling in anything that sinks during rain. After a while, you stop thinking of the dark as unusual. It becomes just another part of the grounds. But there are 4 sections of this property I walk differently, not because of what is marked above the ground, because of what is in the files tied to what is below it, and because of what I have seen near those graves since I started reading those files. I need you to understand something before I go any further. Not all of this ended the way the county says it did. The graveyard runs 3 sections. Front rows are newer, maintained, the kind of place you would bring flowers on a Sunday afternoon and feel nothing except ordinary grief. Middle section is older, stones leaning, names worn to suggestions. And then the back, where the rows stop lining up and a lot of the markers have been replaced with plain metal tags or nothing at all. Nobody says anything official about the back section. The first informal thing I was told by the man whose shift I was taking was not to leave the back gate open after dark. He did not explain, just said it the way you would say, "Do not leave the refrigerator door open," like the reasoning was self-evident to anyone who had been here long enough. I thought it was superstition, the kind of habit that forms when a person spends too many nights alone. It was 6 weeks before I went into the old records. Not because someone told me to, just because I had time between rounds, and there were boxes of them stacked under the maintenance logs in the back office. Older files, handwritten, some going back 100 years. Reports never digitized because they were never meant to circulate. The first file I pulled by accident, a name tied to a plot in the middle section, row 18, Nathan Price. Buried 1998, standard burial log entry, and then a second folder clip behind it containing a different kind of report entirely. I read it once fast, then I sat for a while, then I read it again. Slowly. Nathan Price did not die of natural causes. The infection that killed him had come from a bite, and the thing that bit him had been brought to this property and buried here 6 days before he was. That was the part that stayed with me. Not what the thing was, exactly, but the decision to bring it here, to put it in the ground of a marked, maintained official property and leave it under a handwritten note that said animal remains, sealed box. That was not convenience. That was a choice. I have read every file connected to this property now. There are 4 situations in the records where something was shot, contained, transported, and buried here specifically, not because the land was close, because this ground was chosen, because a graveyard is already a controlled environment. Digging is logged, movement is noticed, Anything out of place stands out against a background of the expected. That is what a graveyard is for. When you strip everything else away, not just the dead, the contained. The part I have never said clearly to anyone is the smell. I stopped logging it because the pattern made me uncomfortable. But I know what I eventually worked out. It comes on nights following heavy rain, when the soil loosens and releases pressure from below. Something in the ground rises up toward the surface. Not physically, just in the air, mineral and close, like the inside of something that has not been opened in a very long time. On those nights, I walk shorter routes. I do not linger near row 18 or row 4. I check the fence line, and I go back inside, and I sit with the door closed, and I wait. About 4 months in, I came back from the back section through the older rows, past row 4. The 1934 case. 3 men and the thing that killed 2 of them, all buried in the same stretch of ground within the same week. That row settles deep after rain, deeper than erosion. I have filled that depression 3 times since I started. Each time, the dirt sinks again within a week. That night, I noticed the grass along row 4 had been pressed flat in a line running from the graves toward the back fence. Not crushed. Pressed down smooth and low, the way grass goes when something moves across it slowly and with weight. The back gate was locked. I checked twice. The grass on the other side of the fence was untouched. I wrote an incident note and dated it. When I went back 2 days later, the grass had come back up. I had measured the pressed section before I left that night. 5 feet wide. I keep the note in a separate folder. The last thing I will say is this. Every situation in those files ends the same way. The creature is shot. The body is transported here. The case is closed. Problem eliminated is not language any of those reports uses exactly, but that is the meaning underneath the language they do use. What none of those files account for is why the soil keeps moving. 4 different cases, 4 different buried things. Each one ended, officially, definitively, before the county filed it away, and the ground above them still does not hold.